Welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss in the latest episode of the dystopian nightmare that has become Australia. I'm going to talk about a new surveillance law that is very troubling, but before we get into that, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video, and smash on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my latest content, because things like this can be coming to a country near you. Best to stay aware and or attentive. So let's get into this new act. Let's roll. So here the Australian government has passed the Surveillance Legislation Amendment Identify and Disrupt Bill 2020. The Surveillance Legislation Amendment Identify and Disrupt Bill 2020 introduces three new powers for the Australian Federal Police, AFP, and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, ACIC, to combat serious online crime. These crimes include the criminal use of the dark web and anonymizing technologies. The powers will help the AFP and the ACIC to deal with cyber-enabled crime in the digital era. Criminals are using the dark web to buy and sell stolen identities, trade illicit commodities, deal in child abuse material, organize and engage in other criminal activities. Notice how that is extremely vague while trying to justify it with other very reasonable and understandable, universally understandable criminal offenses that shouldn't really take place. The fourth bullet point is extremely dangerous and or open-ended, especially in this dystopian time of Australia. Now, the dark web and anonymizing technologies allow criminals to hide their identities and activities from law enforcement agencies. An obstacle to investigating these crimes has been attributing criminal activity to particular individuals, organizations, premises, or devices, especially on the dark web. So here are the new powers proposed for the AFP and ACIC, which are very troubling. So the SLAID Bill aims to address gaps in the existing legislative framework that will allow the AFP and the ACIC to collect intelligence, conduct investigations, disrupt and prosecute serious criminal online activity. The bill introduces three new powers to the AFP and the ACIC, first of which being data disruption warrants, which will allow the disruption of data through modification and deletion to frustrate the commission of serious offenses such as the distribution of child abuse material. Identify activity warrants, which will allow the collection of intelligence on serious criminal activities carried out by criminal network operating online. Sounds a lot like the NSA and their spying material. And then lastly, and this is what's really troubling, account takeover warrants, which will allow the control of a person's online account to gather evidence about the criminal activity to further the criminal investigation. So, not to read too much into what's not there, let's see what the account takeover warrant really entails. I'll click on this resource here, furthering detail, providing further detail about that new power. All right, so here we are, account takeover warrants. So this legislation, part of the Crimes Act 1914, so purpose to enable agencies to take control of online account and deprive the account holder of access to that account. All right, who can apply? Officers of the Australian Federal Police, also known as AFP, and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, ACIC. All right, so the threshold for application: officer must suspect reasonable grounds that the offense has been, is being, or is about to be, Minority Report, or is likely to be committed. The investigation into those offenses is being, will be, or likely to be conducted. All right, so what are the actions proposed by this new law? An account takeover warrant authorizes taking control of an online account. Taking control of an online account means taking steps that result in the person having exclusive access to the account, such as altering, and this is what's troubling, altering account credentials. In order to take control of an account, officers can also use a computer or other electronic devices, equipment to access account-based data, add copy, and here's the other troubling part, alter or delete credentials or data. They can alter data that's on that account that they've now taken over. For example, having obtained account credentials belonging to a member of a terrorist group, an officer could access that account and alter the credentials to block the person from using the account, if only if it was just limited to that. Under other authorizations or warrants, for example, a controlled operation, the officer could then use the account to pose as another member of the terrorist group and gather evidence. Now, what's very troubling about this is, one, the ability to allow the police and the Australian federal agency to not only hack into an account. It's one thing where, like here in the United States, as troubling as it is, the NSA literally being able to spy on all Americans and not just a targeted attack and then being able to lie about it, but being able to take over one's account, anyone that they dare want to suspect, and or maybe violating one of their very dystopian and very authoritarian, if not very communist China-like laws that are extremely ridiculous, can fall under that umbrella. Because let's not forget how Australia has already majorly overstepped the bounds of personal freedom and or how to respond to a pandemic. For instance, about a year ago to this day, a very much pregnant Zoe Lee was arrested in her home in front of her little baby and her spouse hours before her ultrasound for a Facebook post trying to organize a very much peaceful protest against the very restrictive lockdowns at that time. And this is after the fact that Black Lives Matter protests had been authorized and approved there in Australia during the summer of 2020, or the riots of 2020 that occurred all over the United States at the very least. Luckily, it was just protesting in other parts of the world, but one protest is okay. Zoe Lee tries to organize another peaceful one and is arrested because it was against their law. Let's not forget, just a few days ago, or at least a few days prior to me recording this video, Monica Smith was arrested while doing nothing but driving in her car, possibly further outside of the 5K restrictions that they have, as ridiculous as that is. But that's not even why they got her. They arrested her, according to the video, and you can go ahead and watch that, based upon and or because she was inciting people to violate lockdown restrictions. I've also done videos on the concentration camps that are pretty much building for COVID patients, called the Center for National Resilience. And some tried to initially say, no, this is just for international travelers who are coming back into the country because the hotels they currently have for them are not properly equipped to quarantine individuals and or are being overrun, so they need this extra facility dedicated just to quarantining those. I say no, because I also did a follow-up video on that, justifying my concerns or fears, in that there was an actual Australian citizen who was not traveling, currently at home. He had got tested at one point, came back positive, and next thing you know, the cops are at his door saying, you got to come with us and stay at this hotel for an indefinite amount of time. Go check that video out. And let's not forget about the more recent uproar in Australia regarding the fugitive who dared to sneeze in a hotel, in an elevator. Why? Because he did test positive, staying at his own home, mind you, when he gets notification from the Australian government to, hey, no, you know what? You cannot stay at your home or quarantine in the safety and privacy of your own home. You have to go to this hotel. And so he gets in trouble for following their order, gets into an elevator, breaking quote-unquote quarantine, following their very order that they asked him to do. Otherwise, he would have stayed in his home. He sneezes in the elevator, doesn't cover his mouth. You can say that's a prick move, but it was a move that wouldn't have been made in the first place if the government said he wasn't allowed to stay in his home for quarantine. But I digress. They're already moving citizens from the safety and freedoms of their own home into these hotels. That's what they're going to use the Center for National Resilience for as well. This is not looking good. A lot of dystopian rules placed upon individuals. You're not allowed to leave your area for more than 5K. You're not allowed to exercise in groups of 2 or more. very ridiculous. You're not allowed to travel between states freely. You are not free to move. A poor child, though the application was approved as soon as it was put in and didn't need to go through any extra hoops necessarily. The fact that you needed to go through hoops, period, for a child to be able to return back to his parents from his grandparents' station after visit. And there was another woman who was trapped away from her home because she went to a funeral for a relative, I believe her own parent. It's just getting really ridiculous in Australia right now, and I definitely want to give my support out to them. It's very important you pay attention to what's going on in the world around you, because it could be happening in your home, and you need to, or home country, and you need to know what's happening to be able to protect against it, to fight against it, and stand united. And for Americans to think that that's not going to possibly happen here, I say, hello, there's already a Patriot Act. And though the CIA, or should I say the NSA, had James Clapper testified before Congress that they were not collecting the metadata, that was proven to be a lie, as Edward Snowden, very shortly thereafter that testimony, yes, he did betray the United States government, but he did it in service of the American citizens to protect them from the lies and their betrayal of their Fourth Amendment rights for freedom of search and seizure. So I think that it was very telling that the United States was already spying on individuals. This is just one extra step that they can take. And let's not forget, there's already talks of a Patriot Act 2.0 wanting to come up as a result of the Capitol riot that occurred back in January, and them justifying that as a reason for enacting another Patriot Act 2.0. And let's not also forget the Department of Homeland Security has already openly declared any individuals who believe in any and observe any religious holidays, support Donald Trump, and or identify as conservative potentially, are considered terrorists. And there's no limit to what they're allowed to do. That could be happening in the UK as well as France, possibly Italy. So you need to peep what's going on. We need to stand united and resist. But that's the video as it pertains to this very troubling law that will allow the Australian government, which I already do not trust, with the power of not only just extra surveillance, but now the ability to take over accounts, manipulate those accounts. They can change and do things as they wish. And I really don't believe in there being any true oversight, despite the fact that they're saying there's oversight. There's so much that they can excuse or feel as though they can get away with thanks to this pandemic that we're in as they rush towards Agenda 2030. Well, that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, please go ahead and like this video, share this video, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my latest content as I try to stay on top of what's happening around the world. This video is dedicated to my Aussies out there in Australia feeling the definite boot around or on their necks during what is now becoming a dystopian transformation of their country back to a penal colony. I'm thinking about pretty much just starting a whole new playlist for my Aussies there, and I'm going to try to also stay on top of what's happening in France, as well as more on the UK for my people in the United Kingdom across the pond. This is Bruce the Boss, and I'm out. Peace.